Yeah, I was out with my family, my wife, my daughter, and we were having on our way to have a meal for lunch. I got a call from my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law called my wife and told her that there was a shooting at Tops. Then I got a call from my sister, who was in the Tops, that escaped the shooting.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started with this episode.
So this just ruined my whole Saturday after hearing about what happened. So not only did I hear about it and dealing with the terror of it, but also had a family member that was there that escaped.
So how's your sister now to start with? That is very important for us.
Yeah, she's very traumatized right now. She had to jump over the deli to get out. I'm sorry. And many people were following behind her. She almost got trampled as people were rushing to get out of there. There was a lot of people in there. If it wasn't for the hero, the security guard, Aaron Salter, to engage this terrorist, if it wasn't for him, he probably would have came around the corner and killed all those people.
Can you imagine? There's somebody that left the home and said, let me go and buy something in my city where I live, no? She's at home now, no? I understand that she's traumatized because who would not be traumatized? These are things that don't go away just immediately.
It's been tough for all of us just thinking like we could have lost our sister. And here's the other thing. My nephew dropped her off at the store. So he could have been waiting outside for her. Thank God he wasn't, because if he was waiting outside, he would have got shot as well. So I could have lost a nephew and a sister. So we really took it hard. She's seeking counseling right now, dealing with a lot of trauma from hearing the shots, from everyone rushing towards her almost being trampled, and then walking outside, seeing all those bodies on the ground, that could have been her. So the family, we just came around her, just try to keep her comforted and let her know that she was blessed to get out of there. She was blessed. So thank the Most High.
You know this area very well. Is this something, is a place that you frequent, that you understand very well how to move around there?
Yep. I do conferences there very often. There's a library across the street where I do conferences right across the street from the Tops Market, right there off Jefferson Avenue. And then now this is basically a food desert. Without the Jefferson Tops Market, there is no other supermarkets in that area. So this community really relies on that supermarket. And usually Saturdays is very busy. This is probably why this guy, this terrorist, this racist, this white supremacist chose this time to go there, because he knew that families would be shopping and they would be helpless, pretty much. A coward. This is a coward. And I want to throw that out there. Someone who just plans to go after old women and possibly even children. He even planned an elementary school, from what the reports are saying. This is the thinking of this man. Obviously, it was a Saturday, so he couldn't get a school, but he was originally, that was a part of his plans.
The point of view of a historian, is there anything that does this particular event remind us? Because somebody might be thinking, okay, an incident happened, but this is not just an incident. This guy had been planning it. But even beyond that, does it remind us of any other event similar that we can think of, maybe within the area in New York or in the United States?
I mean, we know this happened in Charleston as well, with a man walking into a church, mass killing them, a bunch of Black people as well. We know these things have been frequently happening with mass shootings, but this is not the first time that it was a hate crime against Black people. So, but in Buffalo, this is the first time this has ever happened. So this is a major event in New York State right now that's happening. But if you want to take me back historically, I mean, I only can equate it to fear, my brother. I mean, this started back in France, where they started this thing called the great replacement theory. And now it's made way to the United States. It's been around for a while. It's just now these actions are happening sporadically. And basically what this great replacement theory is that some white supremacists believe that the Democratic Party of America is using their ability to bring more immigrants to the United States with the idea of replacing white people with Jews and non-white people. So this is the things that this theory promotes. You have a lot of news stations, which I won't mention, that are also promoting it as well. And as we see, it's leading to the terrorism of this country. So it's something that we have to deal with. It's another thing that we have to deal with is internet censoring. It's something that needs to be dealt with as well, because he manifested this months before.
Now, another thing I'm trying to understand, that I'm trying to help our audience understand, is the description of this guy in the media. I don't know if you make any sense of it, how it appears to you, because what the Boko Haram in Nigeria are doing, what the Al-Shabaab are doing, is not different from what this individual did, no? But in those cases, they will be described as terrorists, no?
Right.
But in this case now, I don't see him be described as a terrorist. So I don't know if he make any, I don't know how you look at that, to just look at your opinion on that.
That's very clear, my brother. It's racism. Racism. The reason why he's not labeled a terrorist is because he's not black, or he's not Arab, or he's not Asian. This is the reason why he hasn't been labeled a terrorist. But we have been saying it. A lot of us have been standing up in the media and saying that this was a terrorist act against Black people. So I want to give a shout out to a lot of the Black people who have stood up in front of these cameras and said this was a terrorist act. But you're right. It hasn't been treated or even talked about as a terrorist act. In fact, his charges are only a murder one. So when you talk about the things that's happening in Nigeria, yes, these things happen. But again, when they're labeled, the way they're labeled shows that it's a terrorist who's doing it, someone who's against the system. This is about politics. This just wasn't about black and white. This was about Democratic and Republican as well. Some Republicans strongly feel that Democrats are trying to win elections by bringing in immigrants and non-white people. So this is the theory of the white replacement theory that's coming in based on a lot of Republican belief, not all, but a lot. So it's bigger than black and white in this situation, but either way you slice it, it's a terrorist act.
I'm trying to understand here if the media, those who are controlling the mainstream media, have a reason for not describing him as a terrorist, even though to the people that he has terrorized, they don't see him other than being a terrorist. But for the media not describing him as a terrorist, is there any reason for that? I mean, does it have any legal implication, as it were?
Well, you have to think about when people describe terrorists, they're usually describing someone from the outside, right? They're describing someone who's not from that region or not from that country. So since he is from the United States of America, born and raised here, they may or may not, they may decide not to call him a terrorist, because when they're talking about terrorists, they're saying someone is coming against the United States from outside the United States. If that makes sense? But they don't want to call him that for the sake of letting other nations know that they have terrorists within their own citizens. And that's what they don't want it to come out like. So they're afraid for that to look like America is fighting terrorists within America, which is the truth.
Now, let's look a little bit about this great replacement as a motivation, because even this 18-year-old boy have cited that as a motivation behind his movement. And of course, Fox News, the anchor they have repeatedly, according to one report I was saying just now, one anchor they have repeated the word the great replacement for 40 times, 40 times or 400 times since 2016. So this is not something kind of a random thing. People are being fed with it. So somebody is taking action based on the information. Yeah. So what do we really understand about this great replacement? What is the fear? What are this white America afraid of?
You know what I call it, brother? I call it fear. false evidence appearing real. Fear, false evidence appearing real. The thought that someone's coming in is a threat to you. There's a Dr. King, no, not Dr. King, excuse me, Malcolm X once said that the white man's heaven is the black man's hell. And he also said that the black man's existence is a white supremacist hell. Now, this is the thinking of this theory, the replacement theory, that the black man's existence is a white supremacist hell. When you really take the time to think about how one would look at that and how one would think that, they are a very insecure person if they are feeling that they are being replaced. So what you need to do is start having some children.
Well,
you need to start having some children and you need to start raising them if that's what your problem is. But the reality is, this is the thinking of this replacement theory, is that politically, it's an agenda of the Democratic Party to bring in more immigrants to win more elections. And that's what the Republicans are afraid of. Again, I'm not a politician. I don't get into politics particularly, but this is what I'm understanding this to mean. Very insecure.
okay, I like that insecurity part, because I think most of this problem relating to racism, as it were, is actually a sign of inferiority. Because if you were strong, if you were mad enough, you will face a situation. You don't go around arming yourself and then killing innocent people. No,
Right.
because
Have some babies. Have some babies, man. If you feel like you're getting wiped out, you feel like your people getting wiped out, bro, have some babies. What more can I say?
this guy that is going around now killing people, he's 18 years old and he took a gun, armed himself. Of course, I don't even want to go into this control, how you get armed and all that, because in the United States, there are some of these crazy laws sometimes you don't understand very well. Somebody
Right.
who is not mentally fit can get his around gun and do
Right.
whatever he like. They will say, okay, he's not well. But if you are not well, those that are selling gun, are they not supposed to do some background check? And this is a guy who has already been taken to the police. The police had been called because he was misbehaving. They thought there was a problem. So the police have checked him, which means that if the police have checked him I think he stayed there for like for a couple of hours before they left him.
20 hours.
So,
What happened was he mentioned something about a murder suicide in a paper. Okay. And the teachers notified the police. He was evaluated for a psychic evaluation 20 hours, and then he was let go. And the problem with that is that it's not it doesn't leave a record. It doesn't stay on your record. Okay. And that's according to what they call PHI information, personal health information, that they can't release that information to the police, particularly at that time, at least before this happened. Now, obviously they can, and they have access to it now because what he did. But prior to that, they couldn't have access to that information. So that's one of the problems in the system that he got around. But he's also decapitated a cat. His mother helped him bury it. I mean, he's done things. He walked into the school wearing a whole, thing, like a whole gas mask thing on his face. And people were looking at him like, this guy's weird. So there was always signs there for this young man, plus the things that he was writing on social media. But he did these things in school. He said these things in school: murder, suicide, all of these type of things back when he was in high school. So he should have been on high watch then. But again, this is one of the kinks in the system between mental health and, whether this person is actually going to act out what they said they might do.
So they didn't believe that it was, it's like somebody said, I am dangerous. You don't want to take me seriously. And I'm going to prove to you that I'm dangerous. Because now nobody's going to disbelieve him.
Right.
At the time that people have said, because there is this case of him killing a cat. Okay, maybe that might be an error. The report from the school, All these things put together, is it not enough to really monitor somebody and see what? And with all this record around him, somebody still managed to sell gun to him. What does it mean, the background check now? If all those ones doesn't mean any sense, what is the meaning of background check in those cases?
And that's the problem. That record was a health record, and it doesn't show up in your background check. That's the reason why it did it, because they listed it as a mental health issue instead of, a threat, which it should have been a threat. Should have been listed as a threat, threatened to kill himself and kill others. That should have been listed with the police as this man has threatened people before, and he should have been on watch. Unfortunately, he played it off like he didn't mean that. He shouldn't have wrote that, and they let him go.
I was reading recently that what he wrote in school that made the teacher to call the police, then he said he didn't mean it. But after he have committed it, he said actually he meant it.
Yes.
Which means, is this smarter than the system, or somebody just didn't do his job?
It's white privilege, brother. It's white privilege. Sometimes, if you go to a psych ward, if you say something like you want to kill someone, and then you try to retract your statement, 9 times out of 10, they're still going to keep you there. But for this man, he was sent home. He was sent home. Why? I don't know. And it's on the doctors. And a lot of this stuff, people have to be accountable. The media has to be accountable. Social media has to be accountable. The people who spread these theories have to be accountable when these type of things happen as well. But you also have to deal with people's right to have freedom of speech. You have to deal with people's right to bear arms. You have to deal with PHI information, which is personal health information. There's a lot of loopholes that this guy was able to sift through to get to this point where he was able to do what he did.
And he did what he did, and he managed to walk away until they finally get him arrested. That part is also very interesting.
Yeah.
Because this is the United States, where the police will say, I'm afraid they killed somebody, and they go to investigate the person that they have killed. The person doesn't even have a weapon.
Right.
Now, the police, the same police that have been killing people that don't have any arm, met a guy that have killed up to 10 people, we still gun on him. They managed to arrest him. What happened? Did they undergo a special training to start killing people?
He wasn't the only one who was arrested, brother. I mean, the guy who did the incident in Charleston and killed those people in the church, they took him to McDonald's before taking him to jail. Again, I'll say this again. The guy who killed all those people in Charleston, the police took this man to McDonald's after killing all those black people. They took him to McDonald's, then they took him to jail.
We're not making joke with people's lives?
No, no joke, my brother. No joke. The man who killed all of those people, I'm going to say it a third time. The man who killed all of those people in Charleston in the church, he was taken by the police to McDonald's before going to jail. And he was taken alive. By the way, he was armed with an assault rifle as well. Now, keep this in mind. Michael Brown. We know what happened with Trayvon Martin. We know what happened with George Floyd. We know what happened with Breonna Taylor. Yet, these men were black and unarmed. Some had their hands up like this. Some were sleeping in their bed. Some was just going to the store. And they're dead. They didn't make it home. But this man killed 10 people. Bodies laying out in the store, bodies laying outside of the store. The police walk in the store around the bodies. And this man still has the rifle in his hand, and he's taken alive.
That is confusing for me. I'm not able to understand it.
This is America. And America is white privilege. Now, if these officers who engaged this man would have been black, they probably would not have lived. But because the officers who engaged him were white, they were able to, get him to talk him out of putting his weapon down, and he put the gun to his neck, And instead of taking his life, he just put his stuff on, took his armor off, and surrendered himself. Now, imagine if these were Black officers, they would probably be dead.
You see, it is a funny situation, no? Okay, now there is another angle from which I'm looking at it. You are angry with me, you don't like me, you kill me.
Mm-hmm.
You think I don't like you, you kill me. What do I have to do? So the question is, what do the African Americans need to do? What did the people of African descent need to do to be safe? What do they need to do?
The only thing at this point we can do is keep our eyes open. Keep our eyes and our ears open right now. That's the only thing that we can do, because this event could not, people always say what they would or would not do in that situation. But if you watch the video, these murders happen within about 40 seconds, 40 to 50 seconds. So not much time to react. You hear gunshots, you need to get out of there at this point. Be very cautious. Pay attention to your surrounding. Pay attention to people who are walking in buildings, shopping marts, churches. Keep your eyes on the prize at this point. That's all I can say right now. You know, I'm not going to say anything to go and be violent. I'm not going to say go and retaliate. I'm not going to say that. But I am going to say keep your eyes open. That's what I'll say.
But how can a system function like this that is simply not fair? You know, a system that is simply plainly not fair. Mm-hmm. Because the way I see the police take this guy, this 18 years old, after killing 10 people, they took him alive. That is what I think the police should do always. Why I'm bringing it up is because I've seen in many videos where the United States police kill people that don't even have arms. They tell them, raise your hand, you raise your hand, they still kill you.
Yeah.
But now they see somebody who kill other people, they don't kill him. That is where actually the question is coming. It's not because I'm saying you should always keep people, keep person that you are suspecting. That is not even how the police work. The policeman should not be killing a person and then bringing the dead body to the court. So that should be clear. But because they are always killing people, now you see somebody that is killing people, you left him alone. That is where the question actually is coming from. So in this case, African Americans have the right to be angry.
Yes.
Because this is not justice. It's not justice.
It's not justice. And it's one of those things that we've been facing here in America for forever. It's one of those battles that it's never been equal. It's never been fair. And how one would be treated, even the fact that this guy is in protective custody right now. He's not in the general population of the prison. Because more than likely, if he comes upon anyone Black, he may get killed in prison. But if he was a Black man and did this, would they put him in general population? Probably so. Same thing, would he been taken alive if he was a Black man? No. This, excuse me, my brother, this right here, this skin complexion, the melanin, something about it scares.
Well, first of
people.
all, we have to be proud of who we are. If they don't like us, that is their problem.
Right.
Because, anyway, we are going to go back to the conversation again about this great replacement, because I find it to be quite absurd, no?
Yeah.
Because let's look at the people that were harassed on Saturday, the people that were terrorized on Saturday. These are the people that were bundled out of Africa. They didn't ask for visa.
Exactly.
They didn't say they wanted to come to the United States. They were bundled from their land, take it to the America. Now, you are afraid in your own country. Now, you go and start killing. What is their crime? What did they do? What did the African American do that they
There's no crime in building this country. There's no crime in building this country to what it is today. This is what African Americans have done. This is the reality. Eventually, we got to the point where we said we don't want to be slaves. Eventually, we got to the point and said we want to teach our people the truth about our history, as you know that I do. Eventually, we got to the point where we're saying we're not sitting in the back of the bus anymore. Eventually, we got to the point where we're saying we want the rights to our music. We started speaking up. That's what we did. And when we speak up and when we're heard, it's always that fear of us rising up again. That's the problem, my brother. That's the only problem, is fear, the insecurity of white supremacy. They fear the uprising of the Black man. And this is the issue. This is the issue. This is what creates this theory that we know of, the fear of people who don't look like them moving into their neighborhoods, taking jobs, having more opportunities, outvoting them. This is where white supremacy comes from. Same thoughts that Hitler had, that one race should be blonde hair and blue-eyed and should dominate the world. Again, this negative thinking is what's plaguing and terrorizing this country right now. And even in fact, right now, as we speak, my brother, there have been countless threats throughout the city of Buffalo. Countless threats to schools, countless threats to churches, targeting again the Black community. Supermarkets, Walmart, Wegmans, all of these different places are being targeted now, looking for Black people.
Why? What is it?
Why? Because the debt is not that.
It's a crazy situation. You know. Okay, now let's look at what Hitler was even proposing. Assuming this is right, do you know how many millions of even European, forget about other people, millions of Europeans need to be killed for them to succeed? It's going to hurt a lot of people. Millions of people need to be exterminated for them to achieve what they want. I don't get it. I don't even get it. It's a
very, I must say, this is a very small set of people. It's a small cult. It's probably, it's nationwide though. It's not it's not in the millions of people who are a part of this, as far as I know. But we do know that it is a cult in the United States of America that's growing, and it's all over. So you're going to see copycats try to do the same thing that this punk did over at Tops. So we just have, like I said, we have to keep our eyes on the swindle and pay attention to where we are in our surroundings and keep our eyes and ears open at all times at this point.
I need to understand more this monopoly of violence, because in this case now, the white people are the only one who have the right to be angry, and they go and kill other people, no? That is right. And we see the system sort of making it possible for them. These people that are afraid of other people, for this reason, their only means of engagement is to go and commit violence. Do you think they are open for dialogue? They are open to talk. Let's talk about what is the problem. So do you think they are open to conversation, to even understand what is their fear?
I think some people are. Does that mean they're going to change their viewpoint? Maybe not, depending on who's talking to them. I mean, some people have this so deeply rooted inside them. Now, here's the thing, if you think about it like this. There's a lot of white supremacists who have isolated themselves in suburban communities. But African-American people, Black people, cannot isolate ourselves from white people. Because when we go to the grocery store, we see them. When we go to the DMV to get your driver's license, you see them. You go to get your passport, you see them. You go to work, you see them. You got to deal with them every day. But there are some communities in the suburban communities that are pretty much all white, to where they can completely isolate themselves from Black communities and Black people. So if you never see Black people and never interact with Black people, and your kids never interact with Black people, all you're going to know is what you hear, and what you hear on the media, what you hear on television. And it creates this mentality in people to hate what they don't understand. If you don't understand it, some people just feel like, I have to dislike it. It's not, and this is the disease that's plaguing the world right now. White supremacy is not a Black issue. White supremacy is an issue for white people to deal with. They have to deal with their own problems.
Absolutely.
It's like if someone to say, we have to deal with tribalism in Africa. Yes. We have to deal with Black on Black crime. Yes, we do. We have to deal with those issues. We have to deal with how we look at our women and how some of us treat our women. We have to deal with that, right? but they have to look at their issues and they have to solve it and ask themselves, why, when a Black man walks in the room, do I get uncomfortable? Why, when a Black woman comes into the workplace, do certain white women get uncomfortable? I'm not going to say all. When you say all, you're always going to be wrong, because there's some great, good, a lot of my colleagues are great people. They're Black, white, Chinese, Puerto Rican. There's all different races. But some people get very uncomfortable from the presence of Black people. And it's a shame. It's a shame. And you have to look at your insecurities and you got to deal with it.
Do you think these people have a rational understanding of history, like the past?
No.
Because, for example, if you are an American now, and by extension, I usually stay here, meaning if you are a white American, meaning you are not even original Americans. Right. You are coming from Europe.
Right.
So it means now that how do you think you have a legitimate right to this land? How do you justify that? Do you understand that a lot of Europeans are in Australia? They came from Europe. Do you understand that there are a lot of millions of Europeans in South Africa? What do you think is going to happen? That those people should return to Europe? Now, those African Americans in America should return to Africa? Is that the understanding? Or just because you are a European, you are the owner of this world?
Basically.
So how do they?
There you go. I mean,
if they know history.
I mean, you know the history. You know about what happened in Congo. You know about with the colonization all over Africa. You know about what colonization did to India. You know about what colonization did to the United States of America. You know what it did to Canada. I mean, everywhere this has happened. These people have declared to be the rulers of this people. I mean, look at Leopold. Leopold came to the Congo and claimed to be the king of the Congo, and was called there. He has statues in the Congo to this very day. So here's this theory that wherever we come, we rule. This is the theory of white supremacy. And it's no different here in America. It's no different.
But are they really white supremacy or just white terrorist?
Basically,
because now when you are saying now that they are supremacists, I mean now for you to be supreme, you need to commit a kind of crime. But
right.
Being a crime, now I think there is a different way we need to understand these things. If we are calling them supreme now, it means that we are legitimizing them. But if we understand it to be, because now I think the people in Buffalo today are not going to be seeing the perpetrator of this act as a supreme person to them. We see him as a criminal.
We do. We don't see him when we call the term white supremacy. That's a thinking. The thinking. These people think that they are white. They are supreme because they're white. So it's not that we see them as supreme. It's what they believe they are themselves. So when we say this person is a white supremacist or a racist, he hates people based off race, or he believes him being white is superior to others. It's really the ist means his own personal thinking. It doesn't mean other people believe that he's supreme. Just so we clarify that.
That is very important. I want you to spend some time there, because it's just like I was saying before now that in the media, in the mainstream media, he's not being described as a terrorist. Whereas if another person has committed the same crime, have done the same act, I don't want to say whether it's a crime now. Let's say they have done this good thing, he will be called a terrorist. You see? So now they want us to call him a supremacist, as a person fighting for a value, no? Because he is fighting for a race, right? So that is why he have done this. So that is a justification for his act. Therefore, he's not necessarily a terrorist.
Right.
But I am saying that from my point of view, from an African point of view, from the point of view of the victim of this case, I don't think he is actually, there is any way to justify what he had done other than being a terrorist.
Exactly.
So is it possible that we can stick to this? Is it possible?
We need to. And I advise anybody out there listening, all your listeners, that we need to start calling him a terrorist. Because at the end of the day, he shot 2 white people too. So this is not just terror just for black people. There were white people in the store as well who heard those shots, who saw those dead bodies. They were terrorized too. They're traumatized too by his actions. So his actions by no means is not terrorizing an entire community. It's in terrorizing an entire city. You're not you may have targeted just a small Black region, but again, like I said earlier today, people are so mixed up now. You're not going to go into a store of a Black community and just still find Black people. You're going to find white folks working there in the deli, at the cash register. You're still going to find some white people who live in that area shopping. This is why this was poorly calculated. It was stupid. It was cowardly to go and target and shoot down elderly women, and a security guard who was a Buffalo police officer as well. This is the actions that's plaguing this city right now, and it's coming from a terrorist, as you say, and we need to start calling it terrorism.
Thank you so much for that. I like that very well, because I think if we are doing that, then it will become easy to even analyze the case better now. Because if he's a terrorist now, then we're going to be looking for if there are laws against terrorism. Because we want the United States to treat those terrorists the way they treat other terrorists in the world.
Yeah.
In that they are terrorizing community, they are terrorizing people. I think that is where the word terrorism comes from, terror. If you commit an act of terror, you are a terrorist.
Exactly.
That is why other people in the world are referred to as terrorists. So I don't think we should give them a special treatment because, okay, they are fighting, because they are afraid. If you are afraid, go to your home and hide.
Mm-hmm.
There is no law that says you should go and kill somebody because you are afraid.
Yeah.
So if you commit an act of terror, then you are a terrorist. I think that can be quite easy.
That's very easy, and it should be, and it should be that way. It should be that way, but again, the policy or whatever what may have be politically may be the reason why they don't want to paint it as an American citizen being a terrorist to his own country. That could be why they're not, describing it as that. But to be clear on the record, this is a terrorist act, and there are people, including the president, who saw it as a terrorist act as well. But again, law enforcement here has not prosecuted it as terrorism yet.
Probably because it's for the African people, it's for African American, it's not really for white people.
Exactly.
And so for this guy now, and for people like him who are fighting for the white people, no, because they are fighting for the white. That is what they said, no.
Mm-hmm.
So it means now that if they enlarge, because they said they are preparing for race war. That is what I think many of them actually are saying, no. What I here do not understand there is that by this race war, they want people to leave the United States for them. They want Africans in Europe to leave Europe for them. But I'm not yet clear if they also want to leave other land that they occupy and then go home. Do you think it can make any sense like that? That is why I'm thinking before, if there is any possibility of a dialogue to say, okay, fine, this is your land, you stay on your land, I go to my land. Is that what they are negotiating for? Or they say, okay, they're not, everybody is inferior.
They're not negotiating at all. They're just committing terrorism. They're causing destruction to make a statement to the government. They're causing mass killing. They're mass killing people to make a statement that we're not leaving here. You're not going to replace us. This is what they're trying to do. They're not telling Africans or Black people or immigrants to leave this country. They're not doing that. They just don't want them to be allowed here. And they're trying to make a statement to the government by the expense of innocent people's lives.
This guy, this 18 years old, is still a baby. This is a baby. 18 years old, killed 10 people. Do you think he has a clear objective other than just talking?
No, he doesn't have a clear objective. Not at all. He's just committing an act of violence because that's the only thing he feels he can do. So, it's one of those things where some people are just evil, wicked, and I think that sometimes we try to be so spiritual and we want to be spiritual and we want to believe the best in people. But the reality is there are wicked people here. There are wicked people on this earth. And we just have to understand it and accept it. Okay. This world is not being ruled by the Most High. This world is being ruled by men who are in a power struggle with each other. And as long as there are power struggles, there will be men dominating men. And as long as there's men dominating and competing with each other for finance, for political power, for religious purposes, or whatever the case may be, for scrambling for money, resources, all of these things, survival, there will always be issues. There will always be pushing against each other, as the scripture says. So these are things that we have to be very careful, trying to get into the brain of a person who's just wicked at heart, who just feels that his last resort is to pick up an assault rifle and kill as many people as he possibly can that are Black.
How can you go to bed with this? Because so you mean I don't know. Okay, I know you are not a psychologist in this area, no, but I think it worries me, because you also have a mother, you have a father. Don't you have a family? Now you imagine somebody just take a gun or come to your family and just kill all of them. Don't you think? I mean, as human beings, we're supposed to think, no?
Yeah. Well, some people, they believe that African American people are 3/5 of a human being and don't deserve to live. Some people, that's the white supremacist belief. This is what Hitler believed. And again, there are some people who would try to denounce Hitler and what Hitler did, but then they turn around and do the same actions. And you have many in government right now. You have many on your TV stations right now promoting this. Again, when these type of things happen, the things that are protecting these people is freedom of speech. And
they also enjoy the privilege, the white privilege.
Yep. Again, money and power. Power would cause people to do a lot of wicked things. And this boy, not to say he had power, but I'm sure if you looked at his home on the news, he was in a good home, had an acre of land, and had everything most of us would love to have. But yet it wasn't enough. He wanted to inflict pain on a certain race. And he did. He sure did. But he's going to suffer for the rest of his life.
Taking the life of a human being is too costly to do. Even a trained soldier that kills, just look at history.
Yep.
It is difficult. It is difficult to take the life of a person, especially an innocent person, and you can have a good life. It is impossible.
Exactly. You have to. When you hear that mother screams, when you hear that mother screams and that mother's pain that you caused that person, or those people, how do you sleep at night?
How do you sleep at night? How do you
But again, what they say about us, that we're swinging in the jungle and that we're Tarzan and that we are savages. But the reality is, you mentioned, this is the lion mentality, the lion of the jungle mentality, right? So who's the savage? That's the reality. This person, the people who act like this, is the savage, whether you're Black, white, whatever you are. If you act like this, you are the savage.
There is law, that are natural law. You don't even need the government. That are natural law. You are hungry, you eat. You don't just go and start preparing food that you are not going to eat. It means something is wrong with you. Because the law says you are hungry. That is why you are preparing the food. If you prepare the food and throw it away, there is something wrong with you. You can't say I see a cat because I am a human being. I kill the cat. That is not what makes you a human being. That means there is something wrong with you. So that is why I'm thinking that by the time this guy begins to do all this thing, because this is something that has been happening, there are a lot of psychologists out there that should be able to figure out something. I'm not saying he should have been in prison, but at least he should have been monitored.
Right. I agree. Unfortunately, the health system and the prison system are almost two different things in this country. So it's one of those things where he was able to sift through the system, so to speak, and be able to commit this crime. And he even posted a manifesto, and, again, people ignored it. And he actually did what he said he was going to do.
And now the innocent people have paid the price.
Yeah.
And that is not what is the most interesting part of it. Actually, the most dangerous part of it. Do you think that something is being done today to avoid another one? Because we said it's not going to happen again, but it happened again. and again and again.
Right.
Where are they going to kill another maybe 20 people, innocent people just walking around? Because the United States, for God's sake, you should be free in your country. You should be able to walk across the street and you are free. Do you think that is preparation? Do you think the government is doing everything it can to make sure that this doesn't repeat itself again?
I think they are taking precautions to the abilities that they know how. Am I going to say they're doing the best they can? I mean, I can't say that. I don't know that. I think that there's a racist element that's in government as well. But I'm not going to get into it because I'm not really into politics particularly. But I will say that they are taking some precautions. But again, once things die down, we very well may see this happen again. It's problem, reaction, solution. That's the way of politics. The problem happens. Let's react. Here's the solution. Then we move on. And when that moving on period is going on, this is where these things happen, when no one's paying attention. Now, if you even think about this Tops, this is a very big supermarket. If on a Saturday, you can get up to 150, 200 people in there. You only have one security guard. I mean, how proactive is that? That's not very proactive. One security guard. And this is why this happened. One security guard who can be possibly watching over 200 people. That's not even safe for that one security guard. So there's things that have to be looked at in regards to security in supermarkets, churches, all different types of things at this point. You can't even worship for free at this point because a mosque was attacked as well some time ago. So we have to understand that this is far deeper than, just black and white. It's political. And it's also just these theories that are going around brainwashing these children. I'm not going to even give this boy mental health. I'm not going to give him mental health because he planned this whole thing out. He made visits here back 4 months ago. He's been planning his attack for a time. Okay. And he thought it out. This was not mental health. And even right now, I don't know if you've seen, brother, but his family members are saying that COVID did it to him. The fact that he was isolated from everyone during this COVID period for the past 2 years, it drove him nuts. Or then the fact that he was so paranoid about catching COVID. Then he caught COVID, and then he was really paranoid. And then
so he forgot that COVID is not the same as African people.
Exactly.
That COVID doesn't mean he's talking to a man, or instead of, all those are just justification, no?
Yeah.
But actually, what I'm interested in now is that because the people that are always the victim, they are always the victim.
Mm-hmm.
Something should be done. Because, okay, now, why I'm stressing that is this. If the police are sort of happy to, protect him, this is now we are going to do the work of the police. You don't kill somebody. You have the right to go to court, to be tried in the lawful court, no? But if you are an African American, you are a person other than white. If you have a gun, you are a threat to the law. Now they quickly shoot you. If they are doing this, it means they are saying that next time you can do it. After all, nobody's going to kill you. But you have the right to be present before the law court, which actually, this is supposed to be the right for everybody.
Right.
But again, I come to it again. Because the police happen to kill people all around other than the white people, that is why we are putting the question like this. Right. What is going to be the consequence of somebody, of 18 years old boy, taking off a gun and killing 10 people? What are the consequences for so that another person doesn't do it next time?
What they're saying is life in prison is the maximum that they can do. In New York State, they don't do the death penalty. Many people are screaming death penalty. I don't know if that's going to happen. But I will say that a person who's done something like this, may God have mercy on him. And that's all I can say. I'm not going to condemn no one, but you reap what you sow.
To the African American, to the people who are this victim, and they will continue to be the victim, this is not the end of it. As long as the system refuses to change, there is going to be another one.
Exactly.
Sorry to break the bad news.
Yeah.
What is your message to these people, to these brothers and sisters who for no reason, except for being from Africa, except for not being a European, what is your message to them? What do you think they should do?
And this is why, my brother, that I've been teaching African history is to have the identity with back home. You have to know what you come from. If you don't know where you come from, you're just roving about in someone else's land and don't know where you're going. You need to look backwards, have the Sankofa mentality, understanding that when you build something, you have to find a way to protect it too. We have a lot of great entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs in this country. Once you build that brand that you're building, now you have to find out how you're going to secure it. We have to start thinking on this level. When kingdoms, when Kush, Kemet, Mali, Zululand, Carthage, Abyssinia, Aksum, these places were built, the king ordered a military to protect it. So as you're trying to figure out who you are, you need to look back at your ancestors and what they did, how they built kingdoms, how they made successful families, brought wealth through the family. And then you have to learn how to protect it once you have it. But again, you got to look back. When you have no identity and have no purpose to what you're doing and don't know exactly what you come from, all you've been told in this country is that your people in Africa are colonized and that you're a slave in this country. That's all we've been told here, brother. So we have to think backwards, and knowing what's back there can help us go forward. So that's what I think we have to do. And I'm constantly on African history needs to be taught in schools worldwide. It should not be an option. It shouldn't be optional. It should be mandatory, because Africa is the beginning of all humanity. And if white supremacists were able to grow up understanding that Africa is Mama Africa for every human being, they wouldn't be thinking the way they're thinking. But they're taught this dogmatic Eurocentric view that Europe is responsible for everything great and that everyone else is an enemy. And this is the mentality that gives birth to hate crimes.
Probably because those people, they are not enlightened enough. Maybe that's why. Because if they are enlightened enough, they will understand that the other day, the father of European civilization were going to study in Africa.
Exactly.
If they understand, that is why I was saying, if they understand enough, even their own history, because if you understand your history very well, then you will be more mature now that you need to deal with people not by taking gun and start shooting them, by interacting, because human beings live by interaction. How many people are you going to kill?
Let's take a step back really quickly in history.
Yes, please.
In history, let's look at the time in Europe. It is referred to as the Dark Ages. You had the bubonic plague, which killed millions of Europeans. You had crop failure that was happening in the 1400s, the 1300s, the 1200s, the 1100s of AD. You had the 100 Years' War between French, British. You had these things that were depleting the population of Europeans. And then you go down a bit to 1884, 1885. These Europeans said to themselves, well, we've been warm with each other. We have crop failure. It's cold. It's the coldest time ever in Europe. But yet there are people south that are thriving in Africa. There's a man named Mansa Musa who's traveling to Mecca, giving away billions of dollars in gold, resources, massive architectural constructions down in Egypt, which we know about, Mali and Zimbabwe and all of these great nations that are happening at this time. They came together and they sent out mercenaries to these different parts of Africa, India, the United States, the Americas today, and they pillaged those lands for themselves and made it for themselves. This is the same thinking of white supremacy. Though that they were dying on their own, they looked to terrorize other places. And this is exactly what they did: terrorize and colonize. So this is a repeat history. See, some people think that historians are actually psychics. No, we're not psychics. We just know that history repeats itself. That's all we know.
As long as in Africa we do not have a solid background, they can do whatever they like.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, Echo. So how do we reestablish ourselves so that we can have a solid base at home?
Well, finance in our regions, we can financially influence things based off of putting wealth groups together, financing each other, supporting one another, which is another thing. It's a whole other topic, something that we don't do as much as we should. But these are right now, those are the only ways. I mean, you're a foreigner in these lands that we're in, whether you're in the UK, the US, Canada, you're a foreigner in these areas. And then you go back home and are ruled by foreigners back home. Whether they say your state is free, your country is free, you're not free. Because you go to the Congo, you see 747 planes flying into the mines and flying right out with no passport. That's not free. No fair exchange. You have people who have never had chocolate in Ghana, and the Ghana farms and cocoa farms in Ghana never tasted chocolate, never had a cup of coffee. That's not freedom. You don't even see the fruits of your labor. You can't produce the raw materials to you have no way to truly process it, to turn it into chocolate back home. That's not by mistake, my brother. These things are on purpose. So when we talk about what happened to Africa, you have to understand that Africa was destabilized for the benefit of the rest of the world, resource-wise.
And this is what is also motivating this white terrorism on African America or any part of the West. Let me give you a clear example. If maybe in Nigeria or in Congo or in whatever country in Africa, somebody, because he didn't like white people, and maybe he goes to a club where there are only white people and he starts shooting, there will be consequences.
Right.
Because
exactly.
Back home, they have solid background. So as Africans, we cannot rely on the United States to save us. They are not going to save us.
No.
So we must look for a way, like Marcus Garvey was doing at the time. We must organize ourselves as African in the diaspora and make sure that back home, there must be a solid country and countries.
You know, Malcolm X and Kwame Nkrumah and Patrice Lumumba, they were trying to organize this Pan-African mentality. And at this time, you had guys like Gaddafi as well in later times who tried to organize a united African currency. But if you look at where each one of these individuals are, they're dead. They're assassinated somehow, some way. The people who knew what to do, some of the most powerful African names you ever mention, they're gone. They're dead because they believed in bettering Africa as a whole. So you see, these borders that were put in Africa were put there to keep Africans divided. And the fact that we are still divided is the number one problem, is why one country is not strong enough to stand. You need 6, 7 African countries to say, we agree on these things, these Pan-African views, and we're going to protect our people abroad. It's just like, you know, if an Asian person a Chinese person is killed, or this happens to an Asian person, the Chinese are going to go to the US consulate, they're going to go to the UN, and they're going to say, there needs to be reparations for our people who died. Something needs to be done about this. We don't have that as Africans. We as an Africans we do not have a seat at the UN for our people diasporically. So it's a lot bigger than we think, my brother. The only thing that we can do at this point is start reconnecting with our history, reconnecting economically, using our financial power to be able to create our own media channels, to be able to create our own trade, commerce. Those things we can do. But again, it's going to take a collective. Very difficult to do when you have a system that oppresses you when you start to rise up on that level. So it's a really, I wish I can say I have the solution, but I don't. I think many have tried, and some of those great names have tried. So who am I to think that I can do better than what they did?
This is why they are killing us.
Yeah.
Because when they take the gun and point at you, like you were saying of the Chinese, they look for what can be the consequence. If nobody's going to ask, then they do whatever they like.
Yep.
That is why they are doing it. That is why they feel that because you are angry, you kill a black person because you are angry.
Yep.
Instead of going home, meet your daughter, instead of going home and relaxing in your bed and simply die in your own bed on your own, you go and kill people that have nothing to do with you because there is not going to be any consequence.
Exactly. But it's going to be consequence, but it's not going to be as severe as it is for black people.
But with this age of technologies, this dissemination of information, because information actually is power at the end of the day, do you think it can, in some ways, play in favor of Africans because we're in the diaspora? We can do something more to sort of feed ourselves with the right information that we're supposed to, instead of rely on the mainstream, because as we can see, the mainstream are going to feed what concerns them.
Right. I think, you have things like Clubhouse, you have Zoom. Now we're talking to people. I've done several conferences in Africa right here on the computer, right here virtually. And so it's opened up that wave of communication that wasn't there before. Now people in the diaspora are all talking. We have people in America talking to people in the UK just by Zoom, talking to people back home in Africa, in those areas that can have internet that can last for long times. But again, what about those areas that don't have internet back home, that can't get Wi-Fi, that can't get those things? These are the untapped areas that we have to either be there.
In Buffalo, can you tell us what is the preparation now? Have the people been buried? Are there some arrangement going on? Can you update on what is going on in respect of the?
Yeah, I want to send a special shout out to the Buffalo Bills, the football team, the Buffalo Sabres. There's a lot of different businesses that have donated money to the families for funeral services or for food, providing food services for the people who shop at that Tops. So those are things that are being done right now. And hopefully other, people who have the wealth and the means come through and help out that area as well. So funeral services are being taken care of right now, as far as I know.
What usually happens in a case like this? Because I look at it to be very traumatizing to a lot of people.
Yeah, usually, the community starts to come together. You see some rallies, you see some protests, you see things like that happening, which are happening now. You see people speaking up, talking in the media, saying how they feel. So those things are happening right now, but we must say in Buffalo, there's been a great response from, these people who have the means to help out financially, come down and to the community and help out. So that's a good thing.
So I want to thank you so much for the time, dear Emmanuel. What would be your final statement here to conclude it? We have really spent some time here elaborating on this important day, and it's very sad that this incident had happened. There is nothing we can do about it, but of course, as a people, it's painful, but yes, life will go on. So what would be your final message here?
Love will conquer all things. We have to find a way to express love to one another. We have to find a way to sit down at the table and discuss our differences, because we're here. We're here together, some because they wanted to be, some not because they didn't want to be. Either way, we're here in this country together. And we have to learn to let love conquer hate. We have to deal with the issues. There has to be severe consequences for these actions. They cannot go unscathed. They must be dealt with. If they're not dealt with, we're going to see these situations continuing to happen. If the punishment is not severe enough, we're going to see copycats. So it must be dealt with judicially as well.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.